Let's start off with this one. John Kerry has got a lot of heat coming his way. Some people are even calling him a traitor. The news story came out after New York Times leaked this information about Iran's foreign minister has gave an interview that wasn't supposed to be for the press, and the audio was leaked. And that leak audio tape offers a glimpse of some of what was going on in Iran, or what is going on. And one of the things that he talks about in there is that really for Iran, the government is not in charge. The people aren't in charge, but actually the military is more in charge, is what the foreign minister of Iran was actually kind of claiming in these leaked documents. But really, the big hot news is that he said that John Kerry had told him at one point when he was Secretary of State under Obama that Israel was responsible for about 200 attacks on Iranian forces and Iranian targets in Syria. So that aspect of the leaked tapes has made its rounds, and a lot of people are very, very upset with John Kerry and even calling for his resignation. Now, John Kerry right now serves as Joe Biden's climate czar. He's like the climate ambassador, and he gets a seat at the table for all of the big high security stuff that goes on in big foreign policy in the U.S. So even though he's not in the State Department necessarily, he is still very much invited to all of those meetings and meeting with foreign countries and foreign leaders and whatnot. So a lot of people are calling for his resignation because they're saying that what he did by telling the Iranians, giving them that information about one of our allies, is akin to treason. So let's break this down a little bit. First of all, Joe Biden is actually saying that that John Kerry that he's fine and that he shouldn't have to step down, because he's saying, hey, look, everybody knew this. That's what he's saying. Everybody knew that Israel had done those targets on Iran, 200 targets on Iran. That was common knowledge. So he says John Kerry doesn't need to step down. Well, it's news to me that was common knowledge. I could tell you that. Because anytime any of us point the finger at Israel, even now, we're either deemed conspiracy theorists or we're anti-Semitic. So no, actually, Joe Biden, I don't think that it was common knowledge that Israel was the one attacking Iran. I think that many of us suspected it. Many of us know that is exactly what's going on. Many of us can read between the lines, but I don't think it was ever stated blatantly. I don't think anybody really, many people absolutely, especially in politics, weren't pointing the finger at Israel. So really kind of interesting twist in events, right? So Joe Biden, in order to protect John Kerry, is saying, well, everybody knew this, except the only people who really knew this were people basically in independent media pointing the finger at Israel, and then, of course, being demonized and demonetized and deplatformed, and, a variety of other things happening to them. So I found that to be particularly interesting. Another thing I find really particularly interesting is how the right is reacting to this. Here's an article by the New York Post. This one here is John Kerry is skirting the line of treason with Iran. Oh, first of all, let me show you this one by the Hill. This is some of the stuff that is happening right here. Kerry faces calls to step down over leaked Iran tapes. It says John Kerry, the U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change, is facing calls for his resignation from Republican lawmakers and pundits for reportedly discussing Israeli military operations with Iran's foreign minister when he served as then President Obama's Secretary of State. Republican blowback is running the gamut from calling for Kerry to leave his position as the top official addressing climate change to calling for an investigation and his prosecution. Whoa. Biden administration officials are dismissing the allegation, saying the information Kerry allegedly shared was widely known at the time. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Look at this this is the New York Post, and the New York Post is saying John Kerry is skirting the line of treason with Iran. Not that one. New York Post. I guess maybe we didn't put that in there. John Kerry is skirting the line of treason with Iran, it says right here. Yes. So it says here, the rather curious defining feature of Democratic Party foreign policy this one I find interesting. So New York Post is more right wing, right? So it caters more to Republicans. And they're saying here, listen to the way these Republicans are talking. Now, remember, this follows 4 years of Donald Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. 4 years of Donald Trump saying that, listen, we should have better relationships with Russia. Trump saying, there's no point in kind of going after these these various different people that have been so-called enemies and making the situation worse, right? So he was trying to be in some ways diplomatic. Other ways, Trump was very obviously scathing on Twitter and whatnot, and really crass and aggravating. But interestingly, Republicans would always defend Donald Trump, and even I would defend Donald Trump in those moments, because I think that diplomacy and trying to not start more wars or not start more aggressions is a good thing ultimately, and we should stay out of other countries' business, and we want them to stay out of ours, right? So many Republicans were all for Donald Trump sitting down with what Democrats were saying. Oh my gosh, he's sitting down with the enemy. Look at him. Look at how terrible he is. But then now here's the New York Post. And the New York Post says today, the rather curious defining feature of Democratic Party foreign policy, going back at least 4 decades, is that our friends must be bullied and our enemies must be appeased. I swear to you, you could have ripped that out of New York Times 3 years ago about Donald Trump. They'd say, oh, he's making enemies out of our allies, in Europe. How dare he? And he's making friends with our enemies like Kim Jong-un and Assad, right? This is what they were saying about Donald Trump. So here's the New York Post now. The Democratic worldview holds that America is a source of geopolitical evil whose destructive influences must be tamed and reined in, and that America's enemies must be emboldened in order to tilt the global playing field away from America's noxious ambit. So what they're saying is the Democratic worldview holds that America is a source of geopolitical evil. Wait a minute. Wasn't Donald Trump who also was saying, let's end wars? So listen, if Democrats are now kind of saying that same thing, it's not a bad thing. Not that Democrats are saying that, but this is what the New York Post is accusing them of basically saying, that America is this evil warmonger and America needs to be reined in on. Well, yeah, actually, New York Post, yeah. And many Republicans actually share that viewpoint. Where have you been? He says right here, Barack Obama's administration encapsulated this toxic ideology through its single-minded pursuit of a nuclear accord with the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism during the president's lame duck second term. So they're saying, oh my gosh, how dare they go after a nuclear deal with Iran, going after the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. How dare they try to do a deal with them? Sounds a lot like Democrats saying, how dare Trump do a sit down with Kim Jong-un? It's just what this is showing is Republicans are back at it. When you've got publications like the New York Post going and basically saying we want more war is so ultimately what they're saying in saying this. When they're saying, oh my gosh, look at these Democrats and now they're wanting to sit down, make friends with our enemies. How dare they? The playbook has flipped. And when Donald Trump was doing it, these guys were all about it. Democrats were against it. People like myself who are anti-war were saying, yes, this is a good thing. And now now that Joe Biden is doing something, or, John Kerry back when he was sitting under Obama went and told the Iranians something in order to get the deal to go through with the nuclear deal, kind of calming them and saying, look, we know that the Israelis are doing this. Then, now all of a sudden Republicans are saying, oh, how dare they? This is terrible. And no, listen, what we want is we ultimately want less war, less aggression. It's all good. That is what we want. Trump sitting down with Kim Jong-un, good thing. The United States trying to make a deal with Iran, good thing. These are all good things. So this is where, we see that real tribal team mentality come out. This is where we see that just playing politics. And it doesn't seem to matter. Principles don't matter. Morality, ethics, all that gets thrown out the window. If the other team is doing it, it's bad. And this is what we're seeing now. The New York Post should be ashamed of itself. They've spent all of this time championing Donald Trump, defending Donald Trump for all of the actions that were actually quite similar to this. And then suddenly when the Democrats are doing it, it's bad, it's evil, and John Kerry should be tried for treason. Well, listen, it is actually common knowledge, whether anybody wants to spit it out of their mouths or not, that Israel is behind much of the aggression with Iran, that Israel has been trying to bait Iran into a war for a very, very long time. That is actually common knowledge. And it's a little bit refreshing today to find out that many of us who've been making these claims and being called conspiracy theorists for it are vindicated, quite frankly. Many of us are vindicated. Now you've got the president of the United States saying that's common knowledge. Well, guys, now it's common knowledge. So those of us, who've been unaware of that are now, what? Does this mean I get a spot on mainstream news? Did I finally earn my stripes and I can now go work for CNN? Guys, I don't want to work for CNN, at least not now. Not while they're the way they are. So anyway, this is just kind of an interesting twist and turn of events, how we're seeing these parties kind of playing politics, flipping things around, messing with us. And, look, I'm not a fan of John Kerry and his foreign policy. I'm not a fan of really any foreign policy of anybody in the political establishment. They're all playing politics. So I don't really like it with any of them, but I will champion good things when good things happen. And the fact that John Kerry disclosed that to the Iranians as they were trying to do a deal and saying, look, we think it was the Israelis. Now, obviously, this is going to upset a lot of people, right? The Israelis and those who are backers of Israelis, American Israelis. There's people with dual citizenships. There's people that seem to pay homage to both nations. They're going to be pretty pissed off by this. They're not happy. They're the ones calling for John Kerry's resignation. We'll see how much power they actually hold of these days. So that'll be interesting to find out as the days go on. But that is the latest information on that. Common knowledge, guys. Israel's been messing with Iran for a really long time. And apparently everybody like CNN and MSNBC and all them and Fox knew it.